Hey guys, welcome back. And today we're going to be going over my top 10 tight ends in the 2024 NFL Draft. Now, this is a weaker tight end class. There's not really a ton of guys in this class that I really love. I'd say there's about 7, maybe 8 guys in this class that I'm a big fan of. But other than that, I really just don't see it with this class. There are some studs at the top, though, that we will get into. But before we get into it, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Also, be sure to sign up with Underdog Fantasy using my code JWAC to get double your initial deposit up to $100. The Final Four is set, so you guys can play the higher, lower games with a bunch of the top players, whether that's Zach Edey versus DJ Burns, whether that's Donovan Clingan versus that Alabama team. There are so many fun props that you can play with over there. So be sure to go check out Underdog Fantasy. I'll leave them linked below and help your boy out. But here we are. Let's get into number 10, and we're going to start off with Eric All. Now, I have done a prospect spotlight on 8 of these guys. The other 2, I just don't really see a point. Not really guys I'm high on. Eric All and my number 9 guy, but he's an Iowa tight end. Now, I know we always say scout the player, not the helmet, and I fully understand that, but you got to put some stock into that because Iowa's tight end track record right now is incredible. You got Noah Fant, you got TJ Hawkinson, you've got George Kittle, you've got Sam Laporta. Like, some of the best tight ends in the league have been coming from Iowa over the last few years. Eric All, I know a lot of people are higher on him than I am. He's got solid hands and is a pretty decent route runner. And he does show some nice blocking abilities. So you'll love that about him. But if we get into his athleticism, it's just not there for him. He is not stretching the field. He's not pushing this ball down the field. He's not going to be a guy that we really are worried about as a deep ball threat. On top of that, he's got a very unfortunate injury history. He's played in only 10 games over the last 2 seasons. So that's something that we really have to take into consideration. It was between Eric All, Brevin Spanford, and Jaheim Bell for this number 10 spot. And I went with All because I do like his blocking ability. I like where he comes from. And then you look at just kind of his play style. I think it's a very favorable one for the modern NFL. Reminds me of an Austin Hooper kind of guy. Not really a guy that's going to wow you athletically, not really going to do much, but he's going to have good hands. You can get him the ball in the red zone. He's going to make a play. So Eric All is my number 10 tight end, and those 3 guys are some honorable mentions. Jaheim Bell, Brevin Spanford, as well as Jaheim Bell. A.J. Barner is another guy that's on the outside looking in. I know some people love Barner, but not a guy I am really concerned or think he's going to have a very good career. At number 9, we got Tanner McLachlan out of Arizona. Now, if I might put him at number 8 by the end of this season because I think I like him a little bit more than my number 8 guy. He's one of the better athletes that's kind of down the board. And that's kind of initially when I was doing this, I'm like, okay, we're going to watch Brevin Spanford, and then we're just not going to watch McLachlan. I don't think it's going to be worth it. And then I was like, you know what? We're going to get the McLachlan tape on. And I was actually very impressed with what McLachlan showed me. A very good athlete who was a really sharp route runner. At the top of his routes, he cut very well. He did a good job of breaking out. And then he's got the yard after catch potential. He's got speed to win. Now, you do look at him, bit of a smaller frame, has shorter arms for the position, and that does come to bite him when he's an inline blocker. You look at him blocking sometimes. The length just isn't there for him. He is a bit smaller as well in terms of just his overall build. And sometimes when he's blocking, especially in the run game, he's just out of control, doesn't really seem to be very grounded in his game. But I still really like McLachlan. I think he's going to be a pretty solid tight end in the NFL. He's going to be a day 3 pick, probably picked in the 5th or 6th round because he just is not a very good blocker. But a guy that I was really high on last year was Oregon State tight end Luke Musgrave. And I saw a lot of the same things I liked about Musgrave in Tanner McLachlan. Really good receivers, good catch radius, fast, good athlete, can get yards after the catch. Musgrave had a solid rookie year. I think we're going to see McLachlan kind of used as that receiving tight end prototype like Musgrave is. Tucker Kraft is the Packers' seems like every down tight end, and they bring in Musgrave for receiving sets. I think McLaughlin's going to be in a very similar role, but I think he's a very good tight end that's got some really high upside to be one of the better receiving tight ends in this draft. At number 8, and again, I think you could swap 8 and 9. I would be fine with that. Cade Stover, I have at number 8. This guy's just got sticky hands, and that was something that showed up time and time again when you turned on the Buckeyes tape. This guy just catches everything you throw him. One-handed catch. He's got good footwork. He's also got a really bulky frame. I know he was listed at about 247 at the combine. He looks a lot bigger than that on tape. He's got broad shoulders. He's big. And as a chip blocker, not necessarily as an inline blocker, but when he's just asked, hey, just chip the defender a little bit and then go out for your route, he did that incredibly well and just threw off the defender's timing just a little bit to buy the quarterback more time. That was one of the areas that I think really separates him from McLaughlin here. His blocking as a whole is inconsistent, not really great at connecting in the second level, not an inline blocker in the slightest, just doesn't really have the anchor to really hold his blocks. And when you look at him as an athlete, as a route runner, I just don't really see it with him. I see him as more of a middle of the field threat, maybe just kind of dissecting zone coverage, but he's not a guy that's going to push the ball down the field, similarly to Eric All. Not very fast, not very shifty. His route running especially, he just doesn't really have a very expanded route tree. Reminds me a little bit of Hayden Hurst. I think he's a little bit less athletic than Hayden Hurst, but both have very good hands, are up and down as blockers, but I think Stover has a little bit more there than Hurst as a blocker. I think Stover can be a fine tight end. This is a guy that I'm not taking till day 3. Another guy that I know the consensus is a lot higher on than I am. I think he's a good tight end, but I don't think he's really worth that high of a pick. So 10, 9, 8, those are guys that outside of McLaughlin, I would take a day 3 flyer on him. Eric All, maybe late. And then Stover's worth a day 3 pick, but not a guy that I really love. These next 7 are guys that I do really like for the reasons we'll get into. So let's look into my top 7 here. At number 7, we have Tip Ryman out of Illinois. This guy's size is ridiculous. He's 6'5". I believe he's around 270. First of all, that size is absurd if you're looking for a tight end. I think he's got that. But his potential is out of this world. The way that he is able to move at the tight end position you should not be able to move that well. He does a really good job at finding spots in space. He's a decent route runner. We'll get to that in a little bit. He's really quick, tested out unbelievably well at the draft combine. But where he's going to make his money is his blocking ability. He is one of the best blocking tight end. And I might go out on a limb and say he is the best blocking tight end in this draft class. He looks like an extra offensive lineman out there. What he does in the blocking game is absurd. I absolutely love that. But there are 2 parts to the tight end. You block and you receive. And when it comes to his receiving ability, you see the potential is there. It just hasn't really been tapped into just yet. And it wasn't with the Illinois offense. Very unproductive as a receiver. I believe he's only got around 350 collegiate receiving yards. So that's something to pay attention to. And he really struggles to separate at the top of his routes. Just wasn't super shifty at the top of his routes. Wasn't an amazing guy at just creating separation. He's got big hands. He's got the size to win the contested catches. But if we're looking for a guy that is going to be a separator, is going to create space in the middle of the field, I don't think Ryman is your guy. I think he is going to be a Mercedes Lewis type player. Lewis has been in the league for, it seems like 20 years almost, because he is such a great blocker. Otherworldly blocking talents is what I have as a note for Tip Ryman. I think he's incredible. Lewis has been a great blocker in his career, and he's got receiving potential there, and he's been a decent receiver, but we know Lewis is in the league because of his blocking. I think Ryman's going to be in a very similar role. I can see Kansas City taking him because of his blocking ability and the way he complements Travis Kelce. But he is my number 7 tight end. At number 6, these 2 guys are very close, Ryman and Wiley. Wiley was a guy that when I turned on the tape, initially I had a comment that came months ago, and everyone's like, can you do a prospect spotlight on Jared Wiley? I'm like, haven't really looked into Wiley that much, but let me turn on the tape and let's just see what this guy's about. Jared Wiley is a very fun prospect. He's got a great catch radius, big hands. He's got great hands. They're not just big. He pulls in some really good catches, can high point the football. He looks like an extra receiver out there. Also an incredible athlete after the catch. He makes some big plays, knows how to extend plays down the field, which we absolutely love about him. As a route runner, there are some inconsistencies. He's not very shifty, doesn't really cut the way that I would like to see. Also a bit slim in terms of his weight. I believe he's around 240, which I'm not super fond of. And then his blocking. He shows some flashes at times as a space blocker, but overall, I think there are some inconsistencies in his game. The comment that I mentioned earlier, they mentioned that he was like a baby Travis Kelce. And when you turn on the tape, you see that. The way that he can high point the football, the receiving ability, the yard after catch ability, the strength, and maybe not the greatest blocker in the world. I see a lot of similarities actually between Wiley and Kelce. Now, obviously, he's not going to be Travis Kelce, but there are some similarities in his game. And I really like Jared Wiley. I think he's going to be a super slept-on prospect that's going to get taken later than probably a Stover and some of those other guys that were mentioned earlier. But I think he could have a very good impact in the NFL. At number 5, we've got Colorado State tight end Dillion Hulker. He reminds me of TJ Hawkinson, and it's not just for the hair. We're going to get that out of the way. He's a really good athlete. And one of my favorite part of his game was his ability to track the football down the field. Good athlete, good runner. I really like that. And he's very good through contact. Now, I do realize as I am going through this, I will probably change this for you guys, but on my end, it shows my notes from Muhammad Kamara about the undersized, too reliant on power. We're not worried about that. He's very good through contact, though. As a blocker is where I have my concerns with Hulker. Maybe not the most amazing blocker in the world. I don't think he's a bad blocker, but I think Hulker is a good tight end who could have a really nice NFL career. So he is my number 5 tight end in the class. At number 4, we've got Theo Johnson. Now, Theo Johnson is a very interesting player. Similarly to when we talked about Tip Ryman, this is a guy that I believe has upside. And that's kind of what you're banking on with him. You're banking on the upside with him. He's got excellent size. He's a very sharp route runner. And I think that's one of the things that separates him from me in this class is the way he's able to separate at the top of his route. I absolutely love that. As a blocker in space, I think he's fantastic. Inline blocking is not his strength. He struggles against zone coverage, which was very interesting to me to watch because you would watch him and he would try and settle in zone and then he would slowly start drifting away. Very interesting. And look, everyone's going to talk about the combine numbers. I get it. His play speed is not his test speed. He does not play that fast. Now, he is fast, but he is not as athletic as his RAS score is going to lead you to believe. Reminds me of a baby Jimmy Graham. I think Jimmy Graham has been one of the best tight ends in NFL history. Theo Johnson has a lot of the same tools, size, abilities as a blocker and receiver. I really like that from him. Theo Johnson is number 4. At number 3, I know a lot of people are kind of lower on him now. I still do like Jaavan Sanders. Now, I think as a physical specimen, he is built in a lab. He is one of the most unique builds athletically I've ever seen. Excellent in space, really good receiver, has yard after catch ability, knows how to high point the football, is a vertical threat for any offense. His blocking is not good, though. It's not good at all. As a space blocker, he shows some good blocks on occasion, but overall, he is a very underwhelming blocker. And as a route runner, he is incredibly unpolished. We really don't see it. He's not very shifty, not very quick. Breaking out of his routes, he is more that vertical threat only, which is good, and I think there's a role for that in the league. I think he has some of the highest upside still. I know a lot of people are lower on Jaavan Sanders now, but I still think he's going to be probably a second, third round pick and could have a really nice career. Reminds me of a more athletic, better version of Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith has been a great rotational tight end in the league. Jaavan Sanders, I think, could be a better version of that. Smith has been very solid. I think Sanders can be as well. At number 2, we got Ben Sinnott from Kansas State, one of the guys I've loved since I turned on his tape this offseason. He's got the size. The versatility is really interesting. A lot of people have said he could play fullback in the NFL. He's got versatility to play fullback. He's got good hands, great footwork. He's got it all. A decent blocker, even though he's got his inconsistencies. Route running, He's got his inconsistencies. He's a jack of all trades and a master of none, which in this draft class where you've got guys that are great receivers, not good blockers, not great receivers, Sinnott kind of is exactly what I'm looking for. He's got the ability to block. He's got the ability to receive. He also offers versatility and great size. Reminds me of Cole Kmet in terms of his size, play style, blocking abilities, receiving abilities. When I turned on his tape last summer, Cole Kmet was the guy that I thought of, and I'm going to roll with that. I don't even think we need to talk about number one because we know Brock Bowers is the number one tight end in this class. I think he's the best receiving tight end in this class by a country mile. It's not even close. He's an excellent blocker as well, whether that's in line, in space. He's a fantastic athlete. They ran him on in-arounds. That should tell you everything you need to know. On end-arounds, Brock Bowers was getting the football. That's absurd. He's an excellent blocker. Yeah, there's size concerns with him in terms of his weight and how that's going to translate. I'm not worried about it one bit. His separation ability at the top of his routes can be a question at times, but he's got the hands and he's just so physical at the catch point that I'm not even concerned about it. But that's going to do it for me in this video. Let me know what you guys think of my rankings. What are your top 10 in this class? Stay tuned. We are going to be going through a lot of the other positions. We've got some major guests coming on soon as well. So if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.